Attracting innovative talent who possess high technology, social awareness, and the background as a global citizen is at the top of the strategic agenda, not only for countries, but also for entrepreneurs hoping to win the next round of the technological revolution. And big cities like Beijing and Shanghai are also facing competition for talent from vibrant emerging cities like Hangzhou, which provides big preferential incentives. What are the latest trends in strategy for attracting talent? What are the motivations of individual talent when seeking more opportunities in the emerging sectors? And how does LinkedIn fit in when it comes to the talent hunt? To discuss these issues and more, I'm very happy to be joined by Mr. Alan Blue, Vice President of Product Management and co-founder of LinkedIn. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Yang Rui. Welcome to Dialogue, Alan. You've followed the Chinese job market for a long while. Tell us basically the curve of the job market changes, particularly in what we call first-tier cities or new first-tier cities.
So one of the things that we've seen worldwide, and is certainly true here in China, is that every company is becoming a technology company. Once upon a time, technology was something which was limited primarily to companies developing that technology. Today, whether it's in financial services or healthcare or manufacturing, small businesses, restaurateurs, all of them are becoming technology companies. All of them need to have the capability of building software, building applications, integrating with other people's solutions, managing information security. So many requirements have led to a huge flood of demand from companies all across the industrial spectrum to pull in technology talent. That transformation is leading the changes that we see in many of China's first-tier cities. The places where the greatest demand lies, even though there's a lot of interest in the very highest technology, artificial intelligence and machine learning, the bulk of the demand is still in the world of C++ and Java development and project management. These are places where there is very broad-based demand for those particular kinds of skills. And as you actually fill those roles, and as the city grows and becomes more prosperous, it opens up more niches in the economy for more types of activity. So I'll give you an example from the United States. In Denver, a city in Colorado, they're going through a tech boom, which is a little like one you might see here in China, in a first-tier city. But the biggest skill gap that exists in Denver is actually for people who work in the administrative components of hospitals, not in technology. Technology people will move, as they do here in China, to take those great high-paying jobs. But it means that locally a gap forms. And that gap is required to be filled by training. It's required to be filled by making sure that the people who are nearby are ready to take those jobs.
Given the rise of the living costs in first-tier cities such as Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen, do you think these major metropolises will suffer a heavy brain drain, and new first-tier cities such as Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Hangzhou, Chengdu will benefit a lot from the new demand, the robust demand for good jobs, high-paying jobs? What do you think of the dynamics of the landscape in the Chinese job market? Let's focus on the new first-tier cities.
So I don't personally know enough about the relative balance for cost of living versus the question of how much tech companies are willing to pay. I can give you an example in terms of looking forward to the future of what's happened in Silicon Valley, what's happened in the Boston area, places in the United States where we have deep knowledge, where LinkedIn has deep knowledge about those environments. Silicon Valley continues to add currently 4 jobs for every new housing unit created. So that basically means that the workforce is expanding 4 times faster than the housing stock. And that means that the people who come to Silicon Valley to work can't find a place to live. But that hasn't actually impeded the growth of that city. So the amount of activity occurring around Silicon Valley remains very high and growing, even though the cost of living there has become almost intolerably high.
But I'm afraid Silicon Valley has become a concept and an idea, if not an image, for knowledge-based economy in the United States. Since in China we have this boom of Silicon Valleys throughout the whole country, scattered throughout the first and second tier cities. What do you mean by Silicon Valley? You were talking about restaurants, technology companies. So many of them are thriving based on China's preferential policies to encourage incubation, to attract talented professionals coming back from North America and European countries. Does it mean that your market in China is fast rising? And what do you think of your prospects here?
So the growth of Silicon Valleys here in China is a very real thing. And Beijing, specifically but Beijing and Shenzhen, are both cities which have developed the critical mass of talent required for the innovation explosion to actually occur. So generally speaking, the way that, at least what we've observed in Silicon Valley, the way that happens is you build enough density of talent. That talent then has enough access to capital that it can invest in experimentation and ideas. Many of those fail, and the people who were in them recombine into new groups. So to make that happen, you need to have enough people who are highly skilled. You need to have enough investment and failure of investment to make sure they can recombine over time. These things are happening right now in Beijing and Shenzhen, and they can be happening in other cities here in China as well.
Let's look at the job hoppers. It seems every 22 months, young people who graduate from good universities would change their job. Do you think this is an opportunity for your company? Do you think this is a blessing for the competitive edge of technology companies? Let me have a clear idea about what's going on.
Yeah. So technology companies are in strong competition with each other to find this talent. And in order to find that talent, you frequently have to woo someone away from the role that they have right now to take a job at your company. Because almost everyone who has these skills has a more, as we'd say, a smorgasbord of opportunities in front of them from which they can choose. So companies have to be smart about the way they're competitive, but it draws people away from a company after only 2 years instead of spending 3 years or 5 years or 7 years there.
Then the loyalty to the company would become a big issue.
So loyalty to the company matters a lot, but it matters depending on the size of your company. So if you're a small company and you're trying to become big, it's actually valuable to have people moving in and out of it all the time for a couple of reasons. The first one is that when you're a small company and you're growing, the needs for skills within the company change a lot. So my co-founder and I had a class at Stanford a couple of years ago. We called it blitzscaling. And it was about how quickly companies can grow and what stresses and strains that places on them as they move. If you are going from a very small company, say about 10 people, to a company of 1,000 people, the managers of that company needs entirely different skills to be successful. So people moving in and out of the company is actually a valuable way of bringing in the new sets of skills that you actually need. Our experience at LinkedIn taught us that very clearly. Jeff Weiner, who is our CEO right now, was not one of the founders of the company, but he came in because we were growing so quickly, and we, the people who were there, were unprepared to actually take on that responsibility.
How do you define success for the small startup company?
It's a difficult question to answer, only because because different companies will have different expectations of what success actually look like. However, if a company, in the Silicon Valley parlance, a company is successful if it is able, through experimentation in the market, so actually releasing something, having people use it and so forth, to discover what's valuable to their users. And once they've discovered that value, then they're able to grow to reach a very large group of users. That's the usual definition used in Silicon Valley for whether a startup has been successful or not. But the challenge is, can it make the transition from the startup state to the large company state? Many companies stumble at this point and lose their opportunity.
But I'm afraid this transition or transformation will become more difficult as digital giants such as Google, Facebook, Twitter monopolize the big data. And big data means opportunities in the future for startup companies. Don't you think your legislature is seriously considering antitrust law to prevent the giants from taking all of the big data? Give the small startup companies more chance. Give them the opportunity so that they can thrive.
There are big players. Someone described it as companies running through the legs of giants and trying to find a way to actually survive. That is indeed difficult if you want to enter a place where they are strong. If, for instance, you are a consumer internet company and you wish to stay in the consumer internet space, there are consumer internet giants who will cause you problems. However, there is open space for new companies to be formed. It may be in business-to-business or enterprise software. It may be in more expensive baseline, sort of like base costs products to build. But there are good opportunities out there for people to avoid the giant's legs entirely.
Thank you so much. You are watching Dialogue with Mr. Alan Blue, co-founder of LinkedIn. We are addressing issues of free flow of human resources, if that could be free flow in the age of globalization and when President Trump rejects immigration. And also on the platform of populism, is this a mission possible or the other way around? We'll be back in a short while. Stay with us, please. But do you think business communities will have to take side?
So I am a great believer that governments which align themselves with the economic development of their people, the economic prosperity of the people for whom they have responsibility, are the governments which thrive and survive.
In short, you are a fan of globalization, right?
Yes.
Then you are the enemy of President Trump.
I think he and I could probably find many things to agree on.
Okay. Alan, populism might be a major obstacle in the way for a major economy to attract brilliant professionals or scientists. Do you start to feel the pinch or pains of populism and what President Trump does?
So we haven't felt. So looking at it from Silicon Valley's perspective, a major concern is it still possible for the best and brightest to come to Silicon Valley and work? It's a very clear need. Is immigration policy set up appropriately for that? So far, the answer is yes. There haven't been any major changes to the way that work. We still have many people coming to the United States.
I know you hate to answer questions ideologically motivated, but this is a major concern for the catch-up economy. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we have a very different set of institutions, if not values. As a huge human resource company, LinkedIn, do you think this is a part of your concern?
I think certainly any real barriers erected for the flow of talent is something which we would be able to see, and we would be able to hopefully work with our various government partners to try to understand and fully understand the impact they're actually having on the economy. One of the things we do at LinkedIn is we have a project which is called the economic graph. It's actually the underlying data structure which describes the flows of talent and information, and more information, but specifically in this case, of talent around the world. By observing when jobs are posted, when people are joining, when they're taking new jobs, we can say a lot. Part of our mission is to share this information productively with governments in cities, with governments in nations, to help them make the choices which are most valuable for their citizens and for the health of their economy. So whether it's working with Britain, whether working with the United States, whether working here in China as we are, we hope that providing this kind of insight can lead to a productive conversation about the right way to set policy. So far, we have not seen substantial changes in the flow of talent between the United States and China. That could happen, and at that moment we would like to be able to talk about it.
Since we've been discussing the flow of human resources and the very short attention span of job hoppers these days between technology companies, does it mean automatic rise of labor costs? And therefore, it's going to be a major issue for employers. It will add to the costs of their technology company.
So I think it will indeed. I think that there has been in China, in India, and of course, decades ago in the United States, the availability of cheap labor has been a good stopgap when you don't have the technology to actually make things happen. As the labor cost, as the economy grows, labor will naturally become more expensive, and it will change the cost basis of operating the technology companies. It's interesting, we haven't seen the transformation we expect from technology yet in terms of productivity. So one of the conundrums of the current technological revolution is that when you look at the growth of productivity around the world, it actually hasn't changed very much. Productivity growth is at its lowest point right now in the last 50 years. So the question is, why has this technology not actually transformed the way our businesses operate, in the way that has transformed the way we communicate, or the way we share photos, or the way we buy things from stores? That change is coming as people begin to figure out how to deploy that technology more accurately and more productively within their enterprises. At that point, we have another problem, a new problem, which is there may be technology which is consistently cheaper than human labor, even in places where we are not labor constrained.
Are you talking about the use of robots and the advent of artificial intelligence?
I am indeed, and those changes are upon us.
And do you think this is likely to alleviate our concerns about the labor shortage or demographic changes, because China is getting old very quickly? We see the aged population in Germany, Japan, Russia, not the United States. In the United States is perhaps the only exceptional economy that still serves as the most attractive destination for immigrants. It's also a display of soft power, we admit. So, do you think artificial intelligence will help address the concern? If that's the case, why in industrial nations with a low birth rate and a pretty slow population growth rate, Japan is able still to maintain its top-notch competitive edge? Does it mean more women will have to be liberated from kitchens? So give us a picture about the job market between industrial nations and the catch-up economies, because people are getting older very quickly.
I think the catch-up economies, it's not a term I'd used before, I think the catch-up economies, the ones that are growing extremely rapidly right now, will continue to find homes, work homes for huge numbers of its people. So I think here in China, as the economy continues to grow at a massive rate, I think it's 6.5%, that growth will continue to create opportunity for new companies to form, new businesses, new opportunities for people to work. That will continue for, 10 years. During that 10 years, the ability for automation to take some of those roles will become a real thing, and human beings will, to some extent, begin to compete against automation. Now, human beings who are able to make the leap from what we'll call sort of unskilled or low-skilled labor into high-skilled labor where they're working in concert with machines, will continue to find the expansion of the economy to be something which is good for them, because it continues to mean they will find great roles where they're able to interact with technology. The people we need to worry about are the people who haven't made that leap to be able to work effectively with technology. That group of people, we need to start planning today for that, what we call the hollowing out of the middle class, of the middle skilled workers. Because there's a set of specific jobs which are very person-to-person, like healthcare require very person-to-person, and then there are some which have very strong human decision-making capabilities, management, software engineering, artistic pursuits. In the middle, which used to be the bulwark of the industrial economy, people who would work in factories, people who would work in production of infrastructure, these are the roles which are most at risk for transformation in the economy. So people need to figure out a way to make a leap from where they are right now to the new highly technical roles, or at least technologically assisted roles, and be ready to take those, or be left behind.
You give me the strong feeling that you only show strong interest in the capital market, technology companies, startup companies, but we have more professionals who show interest in arts of humanities instead of making money. Do you think your company, LinkedIn, also looks after this large group of labor force?
So we think that, I guess I would say two things. So the first thing we know for sure is that as we progress forward into this future, we're going to be entering a world where an emphasis on what we call soft skills, the ability to reason effectively, the ability to work effectively with customers, to make decisions, to do analysis, to work, to collaborate well, so the set of things that have traditionally been called soft skills, are actually the most in demand for two reasons. First, and most fundamentally, as we go forward, and as machines and robots and AI are able to do more and more of the things that we traditionally had to be called upon to do, we will be focusing more and more on human talents. And the soft skills are a collection of human talents.
What are the differences between the human talents and the AI?
So AI is extremely good, so we don't know what direction AI is going. We can only talk about kind of where it is right now. AI is very good at highly focused, specific tasks, generally speaking, which are repetitive jobs, highly specific tasks, which don't require a lot of creativity. They don't require them to work effectively with anyone else. There's no decision-making, or at least only low-level decision-making involved. That's where we are today. So any job which looks like that is a job which is a threat. And it's not just middle-class, it's not just physical jobs. It's in the United States, there are regular reporting published in papers across America which are written by machines. Simply because when you're talking about sports or the financial news, that's a very specific and well understood area. So a robot can go ahead and write those things. However, if that reporter gets displaced, they need to be able to go on to do deeper analysis or investigative reporting or something which requires greater thought, greater creativity, greater human skills in order to be able to achieve. Secondly, we need to be able to learn and change. One of the things which is going to be most disruptive is watching one duty or role or action within work disappear one after another as artificial intelligence becomes a real thing in the workplace. And that means all of our jobs, even if they're not fully replaced, will be changed, and we will need to learn new skills. Learning is a big focus for LinkedIn right now, specifically because we know that employers must progressively shoulder greater and greater burdens for training and retraining their workforce if they want the people who are working for them right now to be able to continue to contribute to the company.
But do you think business communities will have to take side with their governments? This is the last question. Do you think AmCham will be the last to defend U.S.-China relationship, given the dynamics of the Chinese job market, and you being one of the representatives to defend this most consequential bilateral relationship in the 21st century? Or will you rather show your patriotism. This is a very embarrassing choice, I'm afraid.
So I am a great believer that governments which align themselves with the economic development of their people, the economic prosperity of the people for whom they have responsibility, are the governments which thrive and survive. Those which align themselves in contradiction to what is best for the economic wherewithal and opportunity of the people for whom they have responsibility, they encounter turbulence, they encounter resistance, they encounter difficult days at the ballot box. China takes very seriously the welfare of its people. It takes very seriously the welfare of the countries for whom China feels responsibility.
In short, you are a fan of globalization, right?
Yes.
Then you are the enemy of President Trump.
I think he and I could probably find many things to agree on.
Okay. You're going to have a common stakes anyway, as Americans. Thank you so much.
Thank you.